plots. As usual, we start by importing the libraries and modules that we need. Import NumPy, Pandas, Seaborn, and Matplotlib's pyplot. Let's start by looking at the tips dataset. We'll use Seaborn's load dataset method to load our tips dataset, and we'll save it in a variable called tips. SNS.load dataset, and we'll pass our tips dataset. Let's start by drawing a strip plot for a single variable. So it will be a horizontal strip plot. Let's look at the tips variable. So we'll call Seaborn Strip plot method. So SNS.strip plot, and then we'll pass the variable that we want to draw. In this case, it's the tips attribute, so we'll index it from our tips dataset and run it. So here we have a horizontal strip plot for our tip attribute. So here we see a range of tips from about $1 all the way to $10, and we can change the color of our strip plot by passing the color attribute, let's say green. Now we have a green strip plot. Okay, let's look at another variable. Let's see the total bill variable. So SNS.strip plot, and we'll index our tips dataset. We want to see the total bill, so we'll index it like that and run it. So here we have a horizontal strip plot for our total bill. It ranges from about $2 to about $54. Next, let's see how we can draw a strip plot for two variables. Let's consider days versus total bill. Okay, so we'll start by calling the strip plot method, and then we'll pass our x and y variables. For our x-axis, we'll use day, and for our y-axis, we'll use total bill. And the data comes from the tips dataset. Run it. So we have day on the x-axis and total bill on the y-axis, and we have a strip plot for each of our days. So for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we can change the color of our strip plots if we want. So here you see that the values for our strip plots are very close to each other. It looks like a single line, right? There's another attribute known as Jitter, and by passing this attribute we can see a more dispersed value for our strip plots, a more dispersed strip plot. Let's see an example of that. So SNS.strip plot, we have day for our x-axis, and for our y-axis we'll use total bill, and our data comes from the tips dataset, and we'll pass the jitter attribute and set it to true. Now if we run it, you see, instead of the strip plot looking like a straight line, now it's more dispersed. So that's the jitter attribute. We can also control the distribution of this jitter by passing a number instead of setting it to true. Let's see an example. So let me copy and paste this, and then instead of true for jitter we'll set some value. let's say 0.1 and run it. So we have that. It looks almost similar to our previous strip plot. Let's pass a smaller value, let's say 0.02 maybe. So it looks closer to what we had initially. Let's pass a value of 0.2. Okay, now it's more dispersed. So you can pass different values to control the distribution of your strip plot. We can also draw horizontal strip plots. So if we change our x and y variables here, we'll get a horizontal strip plot. Let's do that. So SNS.strip plot, and on our x-axis, instead of day, let's pass total bill, and on our y-axis we'll pass day, and the data comes from the tips dataset. Let's run it. Now we have horizontal strip plots. And we can pass all the other attributes for our horizontal strip plots. For instance, we can pass the jitter attribute and set it to true, or pass different values for our jitter. For instance, we can say 1.5. Run it. It looks like that. So pass a value that will make more sense for the distribution of our strip plot. So this looks much better. Another thing we can do is draw some outlines for each of our data points. For that, we'll be passing the line width attribute. Let's see an example of that. So I'll copy this, paste it here. So SNS.strip plot, we have total bill on our x-axis, day on our y-axis, data comes from the tips dataset. We have jitter to be equal to 1, and let's pass the line width attribute and set it to, let's say, 1.2, and run it. So here you'll see outlines around each of our data points. Okay, let me zoom in to see it more clearly. So here you'll see some outlines, and we can change this line width value. Let's change it to 1.5. Now you can see it more clearly, right? Those outlines versus no outline here. So the difference is clearly visible. Okay, let me zoom out. We can also pass the hue attribute, as we have seen with the other graphs before. Let's see an example of that. So SNS.strip plot, let's use day on our x-axis and total bill for our y-axis. Total bill, and data comes from the tips dataset. And for our hue, let's pass sex and run it. So here we have sex as hue, male and female, in blue and green, and we have each of our days. We can pass our jitter attribute also and set it to true. If we run it, we see a more dispersed data or strip plot.